Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is an absolute pleasure to say that we are once again taking up space in the corner here at Applebee's in Farmington and getting an opportunity to be with you to talk about high school football. Along with me tonight, Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg, and Chad Speaker. We are so glad to be back on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. Coles Tractor and Equipment in Farmington, home of the LS Tractor. Lead the herd, don't just follow. That's Coles Tractor and Equipment on Highway 32 in Farmington. A big thank you to Amy Cousins and her entire staff at Applebee's once again for hosting us this season. We'll be doing this every Tuesday night through the football season. And, oh yeah, football got started this weekend, and how beautiful it was to have the game back. And we'll go around the room right now. Chad, I'll start with you. Overall impressions from week one.
Well, we didn't have necessarily the most competitive games, the heart stoppers, the final minute scores on our stations this week. But we had some great storylines. I mean, we had Jake Whitener with his very first game coaching, and I thought that was nice to have Fredericktown on the air. They fell short, of course, but that's not a 1 week job. That's a job that he's going to build throughout, so I was happy to have them on the air. A couple of teams that I think I was really impressed with, and we'll dive deeper into this as we go along, but for North County, I mean, that rivalry game in St. Francis County, you lose 7 in a row in the series, and I mean, that's you almost do anything for a win, and they have, I think, the right personnel and the right year right now. And talked to Farmington coach Eric Krupe, in fact, and just was praising North County and how well they played and how much he thought of their team. And so their win over Farmington on the road, to me, certainly stands out as a win that's meaningful for the program. And then I think the other thing that I kind of looked at, it was a team that lost, but we were scoreboard watching Potosi all night, even after many of the other games went final, and they trailed Owensville for a large portion of that game, but scored late to take the lead. Now, they couldn't hold on to it, but they got in a shootout and they scored late, and 1 or 2 plays here or there, they come up with a victory in that one. So I like their moxie late, at least to score and take the lead and battle back against Owensville. There are a lot more storylines to go through. Those are kind of 2 that popped up to me, though.
I would say my impression is kind of similar, which is statements were made here in week one, whether it's simply getting the job done like St. Genevieve did on the road in Jay Pope's debut, or the fashion in which teams like North County and Hillsborough won. There is more depth, I think, this year than this time last year in terms of the ability and the talent of the teams around, and that was evident just in terms of how teams played right away here in the opening game of this season. Griffin Weinberg, anything that just overall stood out to you about the start of the season?
I was very curious to see what the atmosphere in football would be like around here. I knew coming down to Farmington, it's only been a few months for me, but I heard a lot about the high school football atmosphere in the area. And I heard a lot of good things, a lot of great teams around here. And it came through, everyone was alive. I think that everyone was just energetic and just happy to have football back. And I got to see it firsthand with the crowd at Jefferson. They took on Fredericktown, and the crowd was electric. I mean, family, friends, students, everyone there. Big win for Jefferson. They won 50-0 against Fredericktown, so they got to put in some younger guys too, and I think people were happy about that. But I was just I'm glad that football's back, especially being a part of high school football and going up to Jefferson. Really cool field, cool atmosphere up there. It was awesome, Nathan.
I cannot begin to tell you how that Friday night, that last one in August, just always, there's just a charge for me personally, but the fact that we got to have just full stands as well. There was some loud hooting and hollering from a lot of people, at least where I was at in Hillsborough. It sounds like the same thing out at R7. Garrett, I imagine, with a rivalry game week one, that atmosphere had to be fantastic.
It was an amazing atmosphere at Farmington and against North County. I mean, it was just awesome to be part of. It gave me kind of, I'm thinking of a word here. I can't remember the word. I'm sorry. I'm not very educated. But it just...
App State.
It gave... Hey, exactly. But it just gave me flashbacks to when I was in high school. And, that's not very long ago. So I just remember being in the crowd, being in the stands. The whole place was packed. It was so fun just to see high school football back in all of its greatness. Really.
It was a tremendous weekend, I'm sure, in a lot of different places, and we will try to cover as much ground as possible. We will be giving you a little bit more of an in-depth look back on that Jefferson Bluejays win that Griffin was talking about. Alex Rougly, Jay's head coach, a couple of his senior leaders are going to be with us to discuss that game. We're going to start, though, with the matchup that Garrett was just talking about, a tremendous rivalry renewed, and finally a new outcome in that one as North County County gets their first victory over Farmington since 2014 by winning Friday night 35-12, as heard on AM 800 KREI. Really a dominant performance on both sides of the ball for the Raiders. They stood up with a defensive stop on the first possession of the game, forced a punt, and then when they got it, a team that a year ago tended to rely for big plays on a receiver in Carter Kekek, well, I'm sure Brian Jones was happy to know that this year they've got a guy they can give to running the football, and that guy's first carry of the ball game was a big play.
Brings a man in motion. It's going to be Carson Elliott. Pitch option to Job Smith. He's got a lot of room. He's got a lot of room to run. Got a cornerback. He just runs right by him. Here goes Job Smith. 10-5 touchdown County. The Raiders strike first with 8-7 in the first quarter. What a run from Job.
Smith wasn't done, though. The Raiders would stop the Knights again, and immediately the playmaker found the football one more time.
Job Smith, man, brought back a touchdown on the last offensive possession. Peter punt. Job Smith going to pick it up. He's going to return it, but gets away from one tackle. Here he goes down the sideline. He's got one man to beat. He gets a block. He breaks the tackle. Here goes Job Smith. He is at the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, North County. Once again, Job Smith on the punt return. No flags.
I mean, Garrett, getting a chance to watch that team last year, he took a kickoff back for a touchdown in their first meeting, a thriller with Festus, and you just watched him and you say, he's undersized. There's no way he should be able to make the plays. I had a chance to chat with Brian Jones earlier today because Job Smith ends up with 277 yards rushing, over 400 all-purpose yards. So he was our Applebee's of Farmington Athlete of the Week, and he said nobody's more committed to make sure physically they are in shape. I'm sure that popped up. He was one of those guys that looked like before he touched the ball, he was going to make plays.
Oh, yeah, and especially during training camp when I was out there for North County, you could tell that he grew into his body. And I was talking to some people with North County. They say last year, sophomore year, he tried to make plays, he tried to make cuts that he just couldn't make at the varsity level. But he put in that work. Great diet. That's the one thing that's very important. And, in the weight room. So now he's able to make those physical feats. I mean, it was broken tackles left and right. He was able to juke people out, just the agility, the speed, the strength. Job Smith was just phenomenal.
That's such a big element for them. They had Blake Head last year, who they wanted to be kind of a bell cow running back. They wanted to be able to pound the football between the tackles. That's who Brian Jones is. In their biggest games last year, they had to turn to throwing it. They had to ask Nolan Reed to make plays. If they can run the ball at will with a bell cow back now in the form of Job Smith, man, they're set up so well down the line.
And they actually played very well defensively as well. I mean, I'm thinking of one guy, but their whole defensive line was amazing. But Peyton Allen had his paws all over the football, making tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They couldn't. Drew Felker just could not throw the ball over Peyton Allen. He just was able to bat down, I think it was 2 passes. Hey, that defense for North County, watch out, because they played very well against Farmington.
I'm surprised he was able to run around Peyton Allen. I remember watching big number 77 last year and going, who is that polar bear in the middle of that defense? That is a big, big dude. To your point about that North County defense, it was a 21-0 game when the Knights finally got a little bit of traction, put a drive together. Braden Berry gets in from a yard out before halftime, and Drew Felker finally finds the end zone to make it 21-12. It's the same spot North County was in a year ago, in which they had just a single-digit lead in the start of the fourth quarter. They gave it away last year. This year, they put it away. Another big run by Smith sets up a Nolan Reed QB sneak for a score. Reed gets another one, and North County holds on to win convincingly. For Raiders head coach Brian Jones, as we mentioned, the first victory in 7 years in this rivalry. He said afterwards his team, once things got a little tighter, they were able to rally and recoup and start making plays again in the second half.
Kids really responded after halftime. We kind of had given the momentum back to the Knights, and right there before the half, and we came out of halftime and the kids responded, and man, we had just some great offensive plays tonight, and Job is a playmaker, and playmakers make dumb coaches look really smart, and I'm glad we got some playmakers this year.
He was showing off that bling afterwards that we talked about in post game, and I thought that line was terrific. Playmakers make coaches look smart, because his kids, it sounded like, talking to him in post game, your interview with him, the kids were the one more convinced than anybody that they were going to get the job done this year.
Oh, yeah, their kids were absolutely confident. I could tell when I walked onto the field and I went to go talk to Coach Brian Jones that there was a different animal in these kids than probably years ago. Now, I haven't been here, so I don't know exactly how confident they were, maybe maybe even last year. But it seemed like since they stepped on that football field, they said, we're going to win this game, and you could tell.
And Brian Jones doesn't duck the rivalry at all either. Like, the first time you talk to him during the week when you're even preparing for the game, he says, yeah, they're our rival. They're the only school that we've played every year of our football existence.
Since 1970.
And they're the team we want to be. I mean, he heads straight at that rivalry.
And in training camp, he was even talking about the Farmington game before it was even August, July. He was talking about Farmington. We're going to come out and we're going to play our best football. And you know what? And I know Coach Jones said the quote, good players make bad coaches look good, whatever it may be. But he made some great adjustments as well. 21-12, it could have been Farmington with another run, but he made the adjustments. They got the momentum back. So Brian Jones did a great job.
I was not I was more impressed by his game plan in some of their bigger games last year, especially the 2 meetings with Festus, than just about any coach. And they were so close to MAFC Conference champs as a split title. They were so close to district championship game last year. It just feels like they've been building towards this moment. A really great win. Chad, I want to go to the flip side with Farmington here for just a sec, because Eric Krupe used a word I don't think I've ever heard. He's been down here for a couple of years, but I heard him finally use the word young to describe his football team afterwards. That feels like the biggest thing. This is a group of kids that Friday night, we can talk about this rivalry being around forever. That was their first experience.
Yeah, and it's experienced-wise, they're young. I mean, they have some seniors on the roster. They've got juniors. But the thing about it is when you get past their frontline players, their starters, and everybody knows in football, you got to have 2 deep, right, in football, because things are going to happen. Their 2 deep are sophomore and freshmen. So then they get young really, really quick. And plus, they have a senior like Drew Felker, who's their quarterback. I mean, he hadn't played quarterback for 3 years. So, as a starting varsity quarterback, he's in his first year. I think a silver lining, though, for Farmington moving forward, Tyler Williams, their starting middle linebacker and linebacker, had to come out for a few plays, and they found a little spark with a freshman. Now, they knew this guy was very talented. Kason McLean is his name. We're going to be saying his name more often this season. They just weren't sure if he was ready for varsity level night in and night out. They got their answer, because when Williams came out, McLean came in, 9 carries and 107 yards later. They got their answer. He's a freshman that's ready for varsity action.
Yeah, a lot of praise from Coach Krupe afterwards. I know you were impressed with the reps that he got, so I imagine he gets a heavy dose this weekend when they face Potosi. Meanwhile, North County's going to continue to show us what they're made of when they take on Francis Howell North in their home opener. We're going to move to the matchup on AM 1400 KJEF, which was another statement victory for another team from North County's conference, the MAFC Red Division. That's the Hillsboro Hawks. Yeah, they might be a bird, but they're more animal after they made big plays in the run game past Friday night in a 49 win over the Northwest Lions. They wasted a little time getting on the scoreboard thanks to their star junior running back.
Picks up 5 on the opening touch of the game. Now it's 2nd and 5 at the 30. Ball in the middle of the field. Again, the eye set with Ray under. Straight up back, give to Romaine, who has room, cutting back, breaks free, past midfield, 40, 30, 20, 10, touchdown, Hillsboro. Austin Romaine on the up back give, untouched, goes 70 yards, and a mere few seconds into the season, Hillsboro strikes first as the Hawks now lead it 6-0.
They were get a fumble recovery in a short field and scored again to make it 14-0. And then after they got a punt stop, Romaine got his next chance to carry the football. That one worked out pretty well, too.
The fullback is Romaine. Patterson, the deep back. They give it on the up back, give to Romaine, and he breaks free. Makes a man miss at the 35. Jukes by another guy at the 40. Stays on his feet past midfield. He's gone again. 30, 20, 10. Touchdown, Hillsboro. Austin Romaine. 2 touches, 2 touchdowns. And with 5.5 minutes left in the first quarter, it's all Hillsboro. They're up now 20-0.
Ended up being 193 yards from scrimmage on 10 touches for Romaine. He caught a TD pass as well. And Chad, everybody's immediate thought with Hillsboro is Jackson Patterson's run for over 1,200 yards as a freshman and as a sophomore. You'd think he'd be the one with the big game. I'm telling you, Austin Romaine is a physical specimen, and if he stays healthy, he's going to do this kind of thing every week.
Well, and to help him stay healthy, you do have Patterson that can take some. Heck, they threw another guy in there later, and his first carry goes 93 yards.
They had a sophomore, Peyton Brown. Yeah, he scored on a 97-yard touchdown run.
And really, Nathan, Hillsboro's great teams. That's been their calling card, right? Not a back, a stable of backs. But this guy obviously leads the way. And most weeks, maybe any other week, he's not only our Applebee's of Farmington player of the game, he's probably our Applebee's of Farmington athlete of the week. But Job Smith had a really uncommon week to take that honor.
It was going to be hard to top what Job Smith did for sure, but yeah, that's the thing about this Hillsboro team. They look about as deep in the backfield as ever before. Patterson has all those yards and touchdowns. Romaine, almost 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year, and he starts this fast. Peyton Brown is a guy they love, a younger running back who rips off that 97-yard touchdown run. Tyler Watson was the co-player of the game along with Romaine because he had a long touchdown run, and they love him at linebacker, had 2 sacks. The thing that I will say is for all the rotation of guys that can carry the football, the one guys you will see down in and down out is that offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters are back. They just bullied Northwest, offensive and defensive line. And after the game, Hawks head coach Bill Saharsky says front to back, his team really has shown how far they've come from a 5-5 season just last year.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the kids. I'm proud of their effort. We preach a lot. A lot of them perfect effort. They're going to make mistakes. That's part of playing the game. People didn't make mistakes. Nobody would ever score. So their effort's always been great. These kids work hard in the weight room. Tyler Watson's one of our hardest kids. Works out in the weight room, and I couldn't be proud of him tonight. The big run he had and everything for us. Totally proud of their effort. The buy-in from the kids. It's a good day to be a Hawk.
I had to put that clip in the open. It's a good day to be a Hog. They just bulldozed up front. And I know talking to coaches, talking to people around that program, they said that was the difference last year. If they're better at the line of scrimmage, they've got a chance to beat teams like Festus and North County.
And I'm glad that Coach Saharsky talked about how far they've come because, Nathan, last year, and you mentioned it, as a 5-5 ball club, they played in a lot of those games that could go either way. Felt like they were maybe one of those tipping point teams to say, if we get a little better, maybe experience on the line, maybe special teams play here or there, then they're a winning ball club. But to me, the tipping points is beside the point now. They seem like they've gone so far beyond that right now. Not to say, hey, we're a winning program, but maybe they're back to the Hillsboro of 4 and 5 years ago that are really, really good and a threat in the playoffs. I know it's early, and that might be an overstatement, but it feels like that in a Week 1 performance.
Well, you're right. Historically, last year and then 2018 and 2019 are anomalies because this is a program before that. They had a decade of 7 wins as the minimum. They're going to contend or win district championships, and now it sure looks like they're back to being that team. The last district title was in 2017. It feels like they're every bit as good as that after this one. The win on Friday is their first season opening win since 2018. They will get quite a test in Week 2 against Jackson. Meanwhile, Northwest is on the road under first-year head coach Nick Hoth. They're going to take on Melville this coming Friday night.
And if we're going to speak a little hyperbole about Hillsboro, let's do it this week because Jackson is going to be so hard next week. Jackson lost a ton, but they've got that program in such shape that, some teams rebuild, some teams reload. Jackson hardly takes a step back anymore.
I think we'll say the same thing about them that we've said about Farmington and Fox when they've played Jackson the last couple of years. If you make it a game, if you make it a fight for a half, that's a really impressive thing at the end of the day. So looking forward to seeing what happens in that matchup. We're going to go ahead and take our first timeout. We have got a full scoreboard of all the other games to go through for you. A little later on, the Jefferson Bluejays will be our guest. Head coach Alex Rougly. The Breeze brothers and Colton Richardson are going to be with us. We'll also talk about their win over Fredericktown, and then we will get you through all of the matchups that are lined up for Week 2. So make sure you stick around. There is plenty more on the way on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable right here on J98. We welcome you back. It's the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable here on J98 as we bring you our first show of the season, and we've gotten through 2 of the 3 games that were on regional radio airwaves this weekend. We're going to talk more about the one that you heard here on the boot a little later on. Right now, though, we're going to jump to the scoreboard, talk about how everybody else did this weekend. We're going to start with the Valley Catholic Warriors commanding win 50-14 over Skyline of Urbana. Warriors head coach Judd Nagar afterwards satisfied with the win, but as always knows his team still has work to do.
Played extremely hard and, did their best. And, we certainly got some things that we got to tighten up and things we got to fix, but, the good thing is that was a great job on the practice field to get those things fixed.
Valley, Nathan, last year defeated Skyline in the very first game. That's the only loss Skyline had in the entire regular season. They go 9-2 last year. Similar score last year. And so Skyline could be a great team. We don't know because maybe Valley's that good.
Tigers tend to be a tough out, which always is a reason to be impressed when you go out and win that game and win it handily. Speaking of handy, impressive wins, Central cruises to a 40-0 victory over St. Vincent in Perryville. Afterwards, Rebels head coach Corey Schweiss said his team got out to a big lead early on.
Yeah, I feel like we played a pretty good game. Had probably a little many penalties again, which I was disappointed in. But, the guys in the first half did a real good job, got us up to 34 points, and we were able to, have a pretty good second half.
Really impressive stuff by that Rebels team, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them in a sec. Speaking of impressive, how about St. Genevieve going on the road and winning at Festus 36-31? A excellent game for Jay Pope, winning his debut as Dragons head coach. Afterwards, saying they did have to hold off a Tiger comeback attempt.
The decisive moment was, they scored. We knew we had a 3-score lead there late. We decided to run the ball. Austin McBride did a fantastic job getting yards, keep the clock moving. We had that 3-score lead. We were just trying to secure it. We got probably a little too lax on defense, and they ended up driving and scoring. And then the Hands team just made a big play there at the end, and we were able to just kneel it out.
Interesting parallelism in this game because you have AJ Fadale, who started his coaching career last year with Festus, goes on the road, wins his first ever game at St. Jake for St. Gen. He wins his first ever game on the road at Festus against O'Fadale this year.
Don't think either of those coaches would tell you, though, that the moment was necessarily too big. Jay Pope's got that hardware from being an assistant at Jackson, and AJ has previously coached across the state at Columbia powerhouse Rockbridge.
Yeah, and Popa Valley, too. I mean, they've got great backgrounds.
They know what they're doing for sure, and I love hearing Jay Pope also mention that the defense got a little lax. It won't surprise you to learn he's a defensive coach. So, of course, that's the thing he brings up on the way to the win. The Windsor Owls, they also have a new head coach, and they are also winners. They knock off Herculaneum 15-12, and their new head coach, Jeff Funston, said that he's going to take that first win any way he can get it.
A little more of a battle than what we would like to have started the season with, that's for sure. But, Herculaneum is a tough team and has always been a tough team, and, they didn't go quietly, that's for sure.
A year ago, superstar QB Derek Williams had to put a drive together in the last 4 minutes to help Windsor escape with a victory on the road. It was another tight one here, but the Owls will take it heading to Perryville this weekend for that game you'll hear on KJF.
And a battle of actually newbies on both sides in this one, as you've got, of course, who wouldn't want to play for a guy named Funston, first of all, but secondly, Blaine Voss has been a head coach, but he was at Perryville last year and then heads up Herculaneum this year. So, somebody was getting their first win at a program right there.
Yeah, really, really good stuff to see those two teams battle it out in Week 1. The Seckman Jaguars are a victory in the opening week as they knock off DeSoto 55-0. Afterwards, Jags head coach Nick Bayer saying it feels good to be back to business.
Just feels good to kind of get back out and be on the field. Fans in the stands. We had a full off season, a long summer. Really good to just kind of get all the jitters out and play that first game and then be successful. Up front, we kind of we controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, and Cole Rubel did the rest.
we talked with DeSoto head coach Keith Woodland on the End Zone show after that, and Seckman runs this kind of single wing principles type of offense where they just flat get more people to the point of attack than you can get on defense a lot of the time. And Coach Woodland said, yeah, everybody knows what's going to happen. They even know where it's going. But he said you can practice against it, and it's almost like playing against somebody with great speed. He says until you face it in a game and see what they do, he said it's really hard to prepare for.
It's a lot. There's a slight Baltimore Ravens influence in there, just in terms of every time Lamar Jackson touches the ball and runs it, guess what? The other 10 guys on the field are going to be right in front of him blocking, and that's the thing Seckman does with Cole Rubel. And there are big dudes at Seckman, too. There are some excellent linemen up there that you're going to have real trouble just getting near him to be able to maybe get a fingertip on
There's
him.
a Pop Warner influence. I mean, this is an offense out of the 30s that they're running, and there's a reason that things come back around.
And it travels. If you run the ball well, you're going to be able to win wherever. The Grandview Eagles are winners at home in Week 1. They beat Principia 49-6. Eagles head coach Dave Dallas encouraged by his team's efforts.
We came out and played very hard, and I just was really pleased on our effort, and we just kind of got after them from the get-go, and we played hard and physical and on both sides of the football.
That is a team that, for the second consecutive year, wins a season opener and had not done that in quite on top of all the other things they keep accomplishing. Some of the other scores real quickly. Monroe City knocks off St. Pius. The Lancers were only down by 6 at halftime. They end up falling to a perennial powerhouse 42-14. Crystal City loses at home 22-14 to Chaffee. Fox shutout at Rockwood Summit 32-0. Perryville, in a defensive effort, falls to Redbud, Illinois 19-6. That game was scheduled last minute. Perryville was supposed to take on St. Clair to open the season, and then we talked about that shootout for Potosi on the road. They ultimately fall 38-34 to Owensville. For our new guys here, this is the time when we go through that scoreboard, and then we pick your big winner of the week. You have an opportunity to take a team, a player, whoever, and say, these guys won the week. They had the best week of anybody around. I will get us started here. I have to pick the Central Rebels, and I know it's easy to immediately point to St. Gen, Hillsboro, North County, Statement wins. Central gets the nod for me, not because of the 40 points, not because of the victory. That goose egg, that St. Vincent team under
Tim Schumer.
Under Tim Schumer, the staff that they have, and the quarterback play that they've had the last couple of years, they pile up the points. He runs the true, honest-to-God Mike Leach air raid. He wants to move it up and down the field. At minimum, he's going to score 20 on a given night. A goose egg. That's a really impressive thing for that defense for Corey Schweiss and company.
I'll build on kind of your nominee for best performance, Nathan, because the St. Vincent defense actually held Deshaun Welch out of the end zone. He had a 100-plus yard game, but they hold him out of the end zone. So what does Park Hill Central do? Well, without the guy that has all the records, single game, single season, career in rushing already, touchdown, Park Central throws 4 touchdown passes in the first half. So if you think they're Deshaun Welch and nothing else, you're sadly mistaken on that.
Yeah. If you were wondering when is the moment when Jet Bridges starts living up to that family name, it's right about now. It would appear this season. Who's the winner for you this week, Chad?
Well, in our intro, I kind of pointed out some things that kind of grabbed me, and it was North County, and I liked what Potosi did late, but I think St. Genevieve is the big winner, and we talked about the storylines there, and J. Pope didn't go in there, not expecting to win. Obviously, he's got great pedigree, he's done a great job, but I thought Festus to me last year was, and I don't even want to say overachieving team, because we saw what kind of talent they had. And OJ Afadale, he's played at the highest level. He's played in the NFL, but I didn't see a 10-2 season coming out of them. I really didn't. And so I was just so impressed with Festus last year. And for St. Genevieve, they had a losing record. So, you come into this year, and I don't know, I probably wouldn't have picked them, if you were picking teams, but they go on the road and they get a win. So to me, St. Genevieve is probably my performance of the week.
And I got to talk to Coach, sorry Nathan, but I did get to talk to Coach Jay Pope yesterday a little bit about that game, and I asked him, just because it seemed like the right question, did you think that you over-prep for this game because this is your first game as a head coach, maybe you get a little nervous and you want to get the win? He goes, that's absolutely what happened. I probably watched over 200 hours of film leading up to this game. It was just huddle, Festus, figure out. And those are the kind of nerves that you get when you're going into your first game as a head coach. And he was very relieved to get that first win in week 1. of the high school football season as well, so he doesn't have to sit on it for the whole season.
Cole Rickerman still threw for 344 and 5 touchdowns, so I think I kind of understand why he was worried. The Festus offense, it sounds like, is going to hum this year. St. Gen, meanwhile, the other side of things, though, is where they're going to have to take some steps forward. Meanwhile, for St. Gen, I'm sure Jay Pope would tell you, he mentioned it, I think, in the End Zone show. He's the defensive coach. He lets that offense go. When you got Zach and Aiden Boyer, I kind of understand it. Just give those two the football, let them do some big things. Griff, who's your big winner from this week?
I am going to cheat a little bit and say that the Jefferson Bluejays are the big winner, the game that I was at that I called. Now, not only because that was the game that I was at, but I think going into it, we had an idea against Fredericktown what way that game might lean. Jefferson coming off that semifinal and the first district championship in program history last year. They were clearly the more dominant team, but it was the fact that they had so many guys that were able to succeed on the field. It wasn't just Drew Brees. It wasn't just Will Brees, who, by the way, Will was our Applebee's of Farmington player of the game. I think we're going to be speaking with him in a little bit, and Drew as well. It wasn't just Colton Richardson. It wasn't just like these bigger name guys that They had younger players, sophomores, even a freshman quarterback who came into the game later on in the game, sometime in the fourth quarter, picked out a big 27-yard touchdown run. It's a very deep Jefferson team. Guys are versatile. They can play different positions, and I think that it's going to be another fun season for the Blue Jays.
Griff, I think another thing to add to that, too, is, you start out after you mentioned it, you go to the Final Four, you lose the senior class of that high-achieving team. Question is, was that a great team that captured lightning in a bottle? Was it great leadership by the senior class that kind of drug them to that point? Or is this program now on solid footing? And when you look at how they started week one, it probably answers that question. So I think that's a good argument by you.
It feels like, again, I wasn't here last year to watch that magnificent run that Jefferson had, but it feels like this last year was not lightning in a bottle. It feels like this is the real thing, and this is a team that's going to be able to score a lot, and they're going to get in your face when they feel like it.
I was one of those people because that Class 2 All-State team from last year is just littered with Blue Jays. Colby Ott, Dylan and Will Schnitzler, Dawson Jacobek, Steve Stevens, all those guys were seniors. So how would they replace them? Turn around in week one. I think maybe Sean Ussery led them with 69 yards rushing.
He had a couple touchdowns as well. Yeah, there's another Schnitzler on the team too, so the legacy doesn't just die.
Well, they still, for all the guys for the fact that they had, nobody put up a gaudy big day.
No.
They were able to have all those guys touch the ball well over 200 yards rushing. I mean, they did the dang thing. I mean, you have to be impressed with that.
They had 9 or 10 different players who recorded a carry, and everyone. There were a few guys, like you said, not everyone rushed for 75 yards or so. They had a couple guys who went for over 50, but they were just big spurts for one big run there, and it kind of goes off a little of what they're capable of throughout this season.
Cannot wait to see what they do continue forward. Garrett, big winner for you this week.
Man, I'm going to have to do a little cheating myself. Of course, I got to go with North County Raiders.
They won. It's not really cheating.
Well, hey, I did do the game, but 7-year losing streak and, overcoming that. And not only that, but they actually did that game from the start of the game to the end, North County all the way. And the series versus North County and Farmington has had the upper hand, and by a lot. There's been a lot of blowouts, a lot of not close games. I mean, last year there was a close game until the fourth quarter, but this time, this North County team, I said it earlier, they look different, they feel different. Again, I wasn't here last year, but they're a real confident team. Also, I will say Jeff Funston for Windsor. He got his first win as a head coach. That's always awesome. I'm no head coach, so I don't know exactly how it feels to get a victory. But that's always got to be awesome, and especially week one. Now he's 1-0, can go 2-0 as they play Perryville on Friday. You can hear that on KJEF, but there's a good chance, and also Brent Roth has a chance to go 1-1, get his first win as well. So I'm excited for that game. Just wanted to give a little plug right there as well.
By the way, guys, total yardage in Farmington, North County, and Garrett said they really did win convincingly. 399 yards for North County and 213 for Farmington. So, it wasn't just points.
Both sides of the football.
And not only that just figures in offense and defense. And one of the reasons that Job Smith is our Farmington and Applebee's Athlete of the Week are the yards that we call hidden yards. I mean, his special teams yardage was so impressive, too.
They had a lot of great punt returns and a lot of good kickoff returns as well, giving great field position and were able to capitalize almost every single time.
They made the big plays early, and then they closed incredibly strong to get I'm sure, what feels like a much-needed win. Speaking of impressive wins, we're going to talk about one here in just a minute. The Jefferson Bluejays cruised on opening night, and after the break, we're going to talk to Jays head coach Alex Rougly and a couple of his players about their victory over Fredericktown, so stick around. The Jefferson Bluejays are our guests on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable after this on J98. We welcome you back to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable here on J98. Appreciate you tuning in. Nathan Gertz, Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg, and Chad Speaker joining me as always. We will be out here every Tuesday night starting at 6 o'clock through the course of the football season. So come on out and see us. They have terrific specials waiting for you here at Applebee's in Farmington. They're just genuinely nice people too. I know you're probably worried about the food. The food is great. That's a given. What I'm saying is you get food from nice people, too. I personally feel as though that is a bonus. We have some tremendously nice folks with us right now, joining us via the wonders of modern technology streaming. That would be a couple of the folks behind the Jefferson Bluejays, including their head coach, Alex Rougly. Coach, appreciate you being with us tonight.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Always glad to chat some football with you, especially considering where we were the last time we actually had action over the course of an entire season, where your team wins the first district title in program history and gets to the state semifinals. And you guys started this season off pretty authoritatively with a 50-0 win over Fredericktown. Before we break that down a little bit, I know we talked in the summer during training camp about how you got to basically write a brand new story if you're the kids involved. Did you get the sense in the week leading up to this one they were locked in, and last year basically didn't happen as far as they're concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. They had a great week of preparation. They had a great week of 2 or 3 weeks of preparation, to be honest with you, heading into the week 1 matchup with a gritty Fredericktown group. So I was real proud of the kids. They believe in themselves and their teammates and our coaching staff, and they've bought into our program. And, the system's kind of starting to take care of itself a little bit here. And, that's a testament to our kids and our coaching staff. They've done a great job. And, the way we started, we're proud of.
Might have lost Coach there for just a second, but we will go ahead and run through a little bit of the highlights in the meantime, and we will talk about the way that things started, which was extremely fast for Jefferson. It only took 3 plays on offense for the Blue Jays to score their first points at 2021.
Shotgun handoff for the Blue Jays. This one running up the left side. He's got a chance to go. He is in the end zone for a touchdown. It is Will Breeze. Touchdown, Jefferson Blue Jays.
Griff, you had the call on that one. It sounds like they looked the part there.
Yeah, they definitely did look the part. That was Will Breeze again, our Applebee's of Farmington player of the game for that 50-0 win over Fredericktown. He did everything, Will Breeze, in that game. He was a menace offensively, over 100 all-purpose yards. On the defensive side, he picked up an interception. He is the kicker for the team as well, got 4 PATs. I think he might have caught a 2-point conversion in there as well, so he was all over the place.
A year ago for Will Breeze, over 100 yards receiving and a couple touchdowns in this game, kicked extra points, did the whole thing, and I think we have not only Coach there, but also Will Breeze of the Jefferson Blue Jays. Will, you've touched the ball in a billion different ways over the course of your career. How nice was it to be used as a runner to start your senior season?
It felt pretty good. It was my first time ever. I was proud to say that my first run ever as a running back was a touchdown. I like running the ball, but I also like throwing the ball a lot.
Coach, I am sort of curious. The fact that guys like Will have been around the program, even if they haven't necessarily played at running back. Sean Hussery is somebody who had to step into a more featured role, and he would score 2 TDs later in this game. What gave you the confidence to look around and say, hey, it doesn't matter that Colby Ott and Will and Dylan Schnitzler touched it a bunch last year. The guys we have are going to be able to do it right away.
Yeah, this group, Will is electric. Anytime he has the football, we believe he could score. And, we don't throw the ball a whole lot. We throw it more now than we have in the past. So we were thinking, hey, how do we get this football on his hands more often? And this is something that we had to do. We had to move him to an A and D back in our flex bone system. With him getting the football and making plays, it was pretty awesome. And, we knew that Will had this in him. We've seen that as out of the receiver spot. But to see him catch the ball as well as run with the football is pretty awesome. He's also going to be a returner for us and things like that. He's an electric kid, and everything slows down for Will on the field, as well as why he is who he is. So we're really excited about him. He's done a great job.
Hey, Coach, it's Griffin Weinberg over here. I know I talked to you after the game, and I asked you about the depth that you have on the team. Again, for maybe the people who may not have caught that our conversation at the end of the game, how nice is it, how important is it that you know that you have so many players that you can turn to, that you have a lot of guys that can run the ball. Just talk a little bit about the depth that you have on that team.
It's huge. We came into Friday night's game against Fredericktown knowing that it was going to be hot and that cramps and things like that might be an issue. So what we ended up doing was we put together 5 different personnel packages. And it was also an opportunity for us to assess our kids. And we told them that. And we had, like you said earlier in the show, our leading rusher was 62 yards on 9 carries. But we also had about 4 or 5 of the guys who had probably 30 and 50 yards rushing. Ended up machine as a team on 38 carries. And we had more than 2 kids to carry the football. So this is something that we really implemented last year with our group. And as a coach, you're always trying to learn. And something that we learned from when we had the Andrew Graves is that you got to be able to spread the ball around a little more than just have a one-man show, so to say. And we're able to do that with these guys. Our offensive linemen did a great job on Friday night. Our defensive linemen as well. And, these guys are flourishing off of each other. And, this was a complete selfless team game for us. And I couldn't be more proud of these kids.
Coach, not only obviously does it make you more dangerous because the defense can't focus on one guy, but in my way of thinking anyway, that makes a lot more kids really want to play and have fun playing football when they know they have a chance to participate and succeed like that.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more with that. That is a huge part of this. We've got about 45 kids out, 9 through 12, and for a small school like we are, that's a pretty good number. We have a lot of kids that are able to touch the football, and like you said, also, it's exciting for them. Will was a kid that I think he had around 8 or 10 catches last year, roughly, and now he touched the football about 7 or 8 times. And so that goes with Colton as well as Drew and Nora and Sean Unsworth, and the list kind of goes on there. But it keeps them involved in the game, and it keeps their minds involved in the game. And it also keeps them fresh. And whenever you can have fresh kids out there against teams that are playing a lot of guys both ways, it helps out a lot. And they played another speed in the third and fourth quarter.
Well, Coach, you mentioned the other Breeze brother who got involved in the scoring as well. We'll jump back to the other highlight, which is that very, very quickly the other half of that terrific tandem of twins was able to get a rushing touchdown of his own.
Jefferson now inside the 10-yard line. They have 9 yards to go for a touchdown. Drew Brees taking the snap, running to the left, and he will waltz into the end zone for a Blue Jays touchdown. Had no one in front of him, and now Jefferson leads Fredericktown 13-0.
And I want to bring Drew Brees in, who is with us as well right now, because I asked you, Drew, in the summer, you felt like you were going to have to touch it more as a runner. How nice was it this week, not just yourself but your teammates? Every time you guys ran that football, it seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can run the ball successfully, definitely more than 20 times. We could put it in anybody's hand. We could just keep going. You had to keep the defense really honest. When you got 4 or 5 guys just running the ball efficiently, it's kind of hard as a defense to pick which one's going to get the ball the next play, especially when all of us are going 110% and just a big speed ahead.
Hey, Drew, I'm curious. This is your 3rd year as the starting quarterback for Jefferson now. How have you seen yourself change from your sophomore year coming into this year? Do things, has it slowed down a little bit? Have other things gotten more difficult? Just, how have things changed over that time?
Definitely my confidence has gone up to be able to trust my line, trust my fullback picking up a block when I need him to, trust everybody to catch the ball. I know that we can do pretty much anything, just super efficiently. Like I said, confidence is the biggest one for me. I'm way more confident now completing passes, sitting back in the pocket, running the ball is way better. I feel like reads have slowed down for me tremendously, just from growing in that spot. It's just overall it's been a great learning experience, and it's been real exciting.
Obviously, it's been a fun couple of years for all you guys, the way that the football program is rolling, and a big part of that over the last couple of years has been the defense. I want to get Colton Richardson involved here as well because you got to catch a touchdown pass, which I'm sure is always sweet, but that goose egg on the scoreboard to start the season, given how much defense has played a role in your guys' success, how much did you feel like you were able to do what you want to do on Friday night?
Let's see. It's always like Coach Rougly says, DWC, defense wins championships, and that's really what I go by all the time. So it was just nice to really. Well, we had a couple of kids come back from last year from our defense, and they came in like they never left.
Playing defense, it means that you got to work hard. You got to be a little gritty, especially if you're a lineman. You got to really love being in the trenches. But hard work comes with that. I'm curious. I know your coach talked about having you guys practice before school last week on Wednesday and Thursday. Colton, how did you guys feel about practicing at 5 a.m.?
It was really cool experience practicing under those lights. Actually, it was a lot cooler, which was pretty nice. But kind of a struggle to wake up at time. So.
That was about to be the nicest answer I'd ever heard to a 5 a.m. wake-up call. But I'll go ahead, and I want to keep it with the players. Colton, you can answer for everybody. Drew and Will, you can get in here as well, because I do want to shift after a very, very nice week one to what is ahead this week on the road to Cuba. You look at that schedule from a year ago for you guys. Losing to Valley Catholic, they were great, top 10 in the state. Lamar went on to win a state title, losing them in semifinals. Cuba's kind of the oddity on that schedule, that loss last year. Does that game sit with you in any way, shape, or form, just in terms of we knew we should have gotten the job done, and that's why we're not taking anything lightly this week?
Yes. This is our get-back game. This is our revenge right here. I probably haven't had a game so personal in my life. So until Friday, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to sling the ball around. I want to beat these guys so bad.
They got us at our lows, but they're not ready to see us at our highs.
That right there, that's a statement. All right. Coach, I would imagine that sort of thing comes from the top. I would think that just to kind of wrap up, that has been a big part of already the last 24 to 48 hours. When you start practicing, when you see guys in the hallways, you tell them, hey, for some reason you lost that game last year. That should not happen this season. I will wrap up then by asking, at least for me, I'll wrap up by asking, what do you feel like has to be different from last year?
Well, we've got to be able to defend the pass, to be honest with you. They got us on the pass last year, and that's something that I think that our secondary's done a great job of getting better week in and week out, but also with the mindset, like Drew said, that you're going to go in there and you're going to battle it out. You're going to give it everything you have. We had a little adversity thrown at us last year, whatever was going on a Thursday right before the game. And that's not an excuse whatsoever. We just got to we got to make sure that we take care of our jobs at hand, and that's focus on the Wildcats because they're a good football team. I know the score from last week not indicative of that. It's still a pretty good football team as well. And we just got to focus on them and have fun playing the game of football like I know these guys will.
Coach, it sounds like your kids are more than enjoying it themselves. Always appreciate the time, especially we had to kind of do this on the last minute. We appreciate your flexibility. Will, Drew, Colton, thank you so much for joining as well. Congrats to all you guys on last year, obviously, but best of luck this week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate your coverage. You guys are awesome.
Alex Rougly, the head man of the Jefferson Bluejays. I love talking to his kids year in and year out, and he's got another crop of terrific seniors there with Will and Drew Brees and Colton Richardson. They're young men. They're not kids by any stretch of the imagination. They will be at Cuba this week. They will, I think, open up conference play with Herculaneum after that, and then the annual rivalry game with St. Pius. That's just a little bit, I will say, given that I know their feelings on St. Pius are pretty intense. It's a lot of fun to hear them say that about week 2 against Cuba. We're going out and we're going to get the job done.
And Nathan, we do cover them on J98 with the J98 staff sometimes, but you cover them more extensively on AM 1400 KJEF radio. And last year, and I'm not discounting what was happening this year, but last year, what a treat, huh? Football, basketball, baseball. It's really a great time to be a Blue Jay, and it sounds like this year's shaping up really, really nice too for them.
I got a few questions at the baseball Final Four from some other people from other schools because they noticed they went to the football semifinals that last fall, and then their first baseball Final Four happened this year, and said, what's happening there? And I can say honestly, it's such a tight-knit community. Everybody around R7, the parents, the other kids, everybody wants success, and they want success at the highest level, and they're not going to compromise to get it. It is a lot of fun to watch that entire athletic department roll right now, which Coach Rougly is heading up as the AD this year. And I will also throw this bit in because he is the AD. This is going to be his last year coaching. I feel like that attitude about we're going to steamroll everybody in front of us, that's coming from the guy who has one more year coaching the team. He wants the same success that program had last year. We are going to go ahead and take a timeout right now. Again, thank you so much to the Jefferson Bluejays for being our guest. We're going to run through the schedule for week 2 coming up after this timeout. More of the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable right after this on J98. Old Tractor and Equip Football Roundtable here on J98. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether it is on 98.5 FM, MyMoInfo.com. We are streaming on our Twitter at MyMoInfoSports. You can watch live video of us there here this evening, and hopefully going to be doing that all throughout the course of the season. I am happy to report that of the 21 teams in the regional radio listening area, 21 of them are very, very real, unlike the folks down at Bishop Sycamore. But you can go look that up yourself some other time. We're going to go through these very real teams and the games that they had. I had to talk about that because that has to be.
No, it was hilarious.
As much as that is the weirdest story I've heard this week, we had the kids that were far too old, 2 years ago maybe, showing up on one of these St. Louis school rosters.
Yeah, kids like graduating
the one
in
that told me
2020.
about
So
Yeah, go read about that, folks.
The head coach apparently got fired today. I don't even know what that means.
Does he have a warrant out for his arrest, too?
He'll come back with a different name.
Yes, we'll come back with an alter ego.
All right, let's talk about the games featuring our teams in our area. We'll talk about the ones that you can hear on regional radio in just a little bit, but let's go through the rest of the schedule. I'm going to run through it real quick, and then we'll ask for some highlights. Fredericktown is hosting Herman Central. Woo. Corey Schweiss loves testing his team. They get MICDS at home. North County's home opener is Francis Howell North. St. Vincent will play a solid powerhouse on the road at Scott City. Jefferson, we just talked to the Blue Jays. They're headed to Cuba this week. Grandview opens up I-55 conference play by visiting Bayless. DeSoto travels to Poplar Bluff. Festus is at Sullivan. The Hillsboro Hawks host Jackson. Windsor is at home against DuBourg. Sickman heads out on the road. They will be starting conference play as they take on Oakville. Same for Northwest when they host Millville. Same for Fox when they host Rittenhour. St. Pius Lancers are hosting Piggott of Arkansas. Crystal City is going to be at home against Agape, and then Herculaneum goes out on the road. They'll take on a district champion from a year ago, a team Jefferson beat in the state playoffs in Duchesne. Anything that jumps out to you as a result of that Week 2 schedule?
A couple of ideas, and I'll just start at the top. Fredericktown gets their home opener, and for them, they have a brand new field. And maybe some programs, it comes with the territory. But for Fredericktown, who's trying to build that program and get interest in the program, I think that kids can realize, hey, there are people in this community that care about football that have invested in us, and look at this nice new field that we have to play on. So I think that's something to take pride in for Fredericktown. I think that's something to feel good about. I love Central playing MICDS. That's a team that they could they could meet certain years in the playoffs, and they are saying we're ready for it. Let's go test ourselves. So I really like that matchup. And then we talked about it a little bit earlier, Hillsboro and Jackson. I mean, how much better are we if you're Hillsboro? We played a team that maybe we felt like we should have beat. Now we're going to play the defending state champions. How are we going to do? Are we going to win? Are we going to make it a game? How's this going to go? That may go a little ways, not necessarily for people on the outside to gauge how they are, but the kids that play in the game, that are playing against Jackson, they're going to measure themselves against the guy across from them. This could give them some confidence moving forward.
I think they got shut out last year at Jackson, so playing the Indians close at all is going to be a moral victory, as it were. St. Vincent on the road for Scott City is another example of a great challenge. That is a team that has been a perennial Class 2 powerhouse, and so that'll be a good one for Tim Schumer's squad there. And obviously, we just heard the Jefferson Bluejays say that they are definitely still thinking about that Cuba loss that they took a year ago and how they feel like they were not supposed to lose that game, and that they're not going to allow it to happen this time.
Fox got beat last week, 32-0. Coach Tinker called in, and Griffin knows about the eternal optimism of Coach Brent Tinker. He said, "You will not talk to a happier coach tonight that lost 32-0." And I think that a coach can instill confidence and belief in his team after a loss, and we'll see how they bounce back this week.
I would not be surprised at all if they put a great effort together against Rittenhour. Still quite a bit of talent. A lot of guys like Jahad Thompson are still around that you can give the football to, and that can play on the defensive end as well. Anything that jumps out to you about the Week 2 schedule, Griff?
Well, I can talk to you about the game that I'm going to be at, and I really don't need to promo it that much because I think it speaks for itself. Valley at St. John, going to be a big one. Obviously, I think some people know about the history. Jay Pope graduated from Valley, coached at Valley for a long time, won a national state championship with Jackson last year as a DB coach. First year, St. John gets the win in Week 1. Now he's going to be going up against his old mentor. If I can throw a little more fire under the flames, though, Judd Nagger, head coach over at Valley, is the best man at Jay Pope's wedding. They're very close with each other. They know each other well. They're not going to be, I think, giving each other too much crap over the course of the week. There's a very friendly rivalry, I think, that it is. It's a very close community over in St. Jen, but it is going to be, I think, a game unlike any that you have seen in this rivalry.
We were spending all of Friday night trying to figure out what happened with St. Jen and Festus, who, of course, knew it right away. Judd Nagger. He knew before any of us.
He broke it on the end zone show.
He told us on the end zone show what the final score was in that one and the result, because there is some Harbaugh brothers energy there. You're right. They are such a big part of each other's lives, and obviously they want the best for each other. And I cannot, just the pedigree of a guy who coached at Jackson and knows what it takes to win a championship, a guy who got that up-close education as a player playing for Coach Nagger. Man, that's going to be an interesting element to throw into that crosstown rivalry. Garrett, anything about week 2 that jumps out for you?
Obviously I want to talk about my game, but first I actually want to talk about another game we're going to be broadcasting on KREI. That's Farmington and Potosi. I just think that's going to be fun, seeing how Farmington responds to obviously a hurtful loss against North County. But this Potosi team, I got to see them during training camp. They have a good offense, and we saw it against Owensville. Putting up 34 points, that's nothing to scoff at. So this is a Farmington team that's usually had a really good defense going up against Potosi, who has pretty much a good offense this year. So that's really exciting to see. And again, I'm going to harp on it one more time, just seeing how Farmington responds. That's how you know if a team is great, is how they come out after facing adversity.
Eric Kruppe's team has not been in this spot before, and Chad's going to tell us a little bit more about that game in just a minute, but I'm with you. That's intriguing to see what they look like off a early season, middle season loss. That's something that just doesn't happen to them. We're going to break down those 3 broadcast games, the Valley Catholic Warriors and the St. Genevieve Dragons, the matchup between Farmington and Potosi. We'll also talk about Windsor at Perryville. The breakdowns of those are coming up after this timeout. A little Mizzou talk as well. We'll wrap up the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable right after this here on J98. Back one final time on the Coles Tractor Equipment Football Roundtable here on J98. Just a little reminder for you that if you're looking for your sports fixed otherwise, tomorrow on AM 1400 KJF, we've got softball for the Jefferson County Game of the Week, Northwest at Festus. They're breaking in the brand new on-campus field over at Festus High School. And then, of course, you can always keep up to date with what we're doing over at MIMOinfo.com. On top of more high school football this weekend, college football gets started. Technically got started this last weekend, but this is when it really gets going in week one. And
we don't count week 0.
I mean, Nebraska fans certainly don't, but we can talk about that at another time. But yeah, starting Thursday night, one of my favorite weekends of the year kicks underway as far as the new college football season getting underway. The Missouri Tigers are preparing for a new season, which will begin at home this Saturday against Central Michigan. Mizzou head coach Eli Drinkowitz, his second year with the squad, knows a little bit more about this team than in the past. And he told the folks at home about this year's team.
I mean, we're much more comfortable knowing our kids might fit, but you also don't want to put them in a box and try to limit them. So this is about us, establishing our identity for this year and what we're trying to accomplish. And so I really try not to use that frame of reference from last year, but we are further ahead, no doubt about it.
Connor Bazalak will be in his second year as the starter. A couple of receivers are back. They lose the all-world, all-conference running back Larry Roundtree, but a lot of starters are back defensively. Garrett, you know a thing or two about Eli Drinkowitz as far as
I know a
coach.
thing about Eli Drinkowitz, and it still hurts because he left us high and dry for Missouri. But
now, when you say us, tell people what you're talking about.
Appalachian State.
Fresh grad over there.
Fresh graduate in May of this year. But I know Eli Drinkowitz as a head football coach, and I'll tell you what, even though I have a lot of disdain in my heart for the man, he is a very good football coach. He is a great leader as well. He is a fantastic offensive mind. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Missouri this year. I mean, he did a pretty good job in his first season. I mean, there wasn't a lot of expectations, especially in the SEC, the hardest conference in football. And I think he knows the difference between G5 and P5 football right about now. So I got confidence in him, but, he shouldn't have left App State still. But either way.
A lot of people around college football thought they would be maybe one of the worst teams in the country a year ago. And in the middle part of the season, they just hit a run, and it looked like things were going great. And then back-to-back losses against Georgia and Mississippi State at the end of the year really put a bit of a sour note on an otherwise pretty solid 5-5 season. Chad, I know you've got a little bit of scouting done on Central Michigan out of the MAC. I think Jim McElwain's still there coaching the Chippewas.
Yeah, well, it's a matchup of a pair of 500 ball clubs from a year ago, but 500 SEC ball club,
500 in the MAC
against the 500 MAC team, and the Chippewas were locked in the MAC last year. Some of the larger conferences got a few games in. I think it was one game against maybe a team from another conference, but some of those other smaller conferences kind of locked themselves in, and so Central Michigan went 3-3 in the MAC, and I just think it's fun that we're now getting back to where we can get these early season matchups, maybe get a team like Mizzou. You never know. Central Michigan could surprise some people, but generally this is an SEC team this is kind of a tune-up. We're going to get ready to play some of the big boys, and that probably is what's going to happen here, but you never know. But, I think people are just going to be happy to be back to Faurot Field, watch college football, and I'm like you, Nathan. I actually did watch the Nebraska game. Maybe I should say the Illinois game.
Yeah.
And I was just happy to have college football back, and so I'm happy about this Thursday and Saturday as well. It's one
new, I want to say, North End Zone edition that they put in at Faurot Field. They have not chance to have people actually experience all of that just yet, so I know that they are giddy about having people back in there. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, and having non-conference games, you're right, that was an element I missed last year in college ball. Georgia and Clemson will play this weekend, Alabama and Miami. Mizzou goes to Boston College at one point later this year, so yeah, there's going to be a lot of interesting matchups down the line. We've got some really fun games lined up for you in week 2 of the high school season. We talked about the entire schedule, save for the ones that we're going to broadcast, and we're going to run through those here one more time before we wrap up and break them down. I will start with you, Garrett. You'll have the call on AM 1400 KJF as the Windsor Owls travel to take on the Perryville Pirates.
Well, first things first, before we get into that, I just want to talk about how much I missed football. I even watched Hawaii and UCLA. But either way, yes, this Perryville-Windsor game, this is going to be quite interesting. It's 2 first-year head coaches. We want to see what they can do. And I'm looking at the Perryville side of things. Now they have, more time to prepare as, their quarantine with St. Clair. They weren't able to play, so they had Redbud, Illinois just come in and kind of just weren't prepared for that, I would say. So that's what I want to see from Perryville, having that preparation period and actually know who they're going to play against. And on the Windsor side of things, they lost 38-18 against this Perryville team last year. So how are they going to answer now, especially with Funston as the head coach? It's a new culture on both sides. It should be exciting to see what both head coaches are going to implement and what they learned from week 1.
I thought it was interesting to hear Coach Funston talk about his team this year in terms of, we lost one of the best players, the best athletes from a year ago, but last year, sometimes when things weren't working out for us, everybody would look at Derek like, what's going to happen? Well, he's not there this year, and he says we really have more guys involved, more guys maybe able to do some things this year, and that's definitely the line you have to sell. If it's the truth, we're going to find out.
They combined, these two teams, Windsor and Perryville, to score 21 points in week 1, so the emphasis is to play better on offense, obviously. Comparatively, though, they combined to only give up 31 points. They played very well defensively. We'll see if we get another slugfest on Friday night. AM 800 KREI is your home for Farmington Knights football. Chad, the Knights welcome Potosi in. The younger Coleman clearly able to move that offense up and down the field.
Yeah, and important, I think, last year, his older brother, Blake, got injured last year, and he came in and was the starter, and even when Big Brother came back, they split time. So I think that experience from last year certainly helped him, and it's a Potosi Trojan team that, they have a little bit of balance. They can run and throw. Last year was a weird game with Farmington. It was 10-6.
Yeah.
And Farmington's offense looked like, Farmington last year scored 30 in their opener. It looked like maybe they were going to be able to move up and down the field. Potosi really got tough on defense and scored late to make it a 4-point game. To me, that's the question this year is who's going to get stops because Farmington gives up 35 in their opener. Potosi gives up 38. Who's going to get stops in this ballgame? I think the Farmington offense is going to be much better. You've got Drew Felker in his second game as the starting quarterback. Good athlete, really intelligent kid. So he's going to improve from week 1 to week 2. And for Farmington, they didn't start their freshman Kason McLean in that A or fullback position. They're going to move him up on the depth chart this week. He's going to get more carries, and he got 9 carries last week, 11.5 yards per rush, and this guy could definitely be a weapon, even as a freshman for the Knights.
They are looking for that next stud carrying the football because they've had it the last couple of years. Casey McLean might be that guy. Flip side for Potosi, it's fun to note that last year started 2-1 in Dylan Wyrick's first year, gave up 12, 6, and 6. They were great on the defensive end. They're coming off a 38-34 loss. I imagine he has been shouting already in the last 48 hours, we got to get back to playing D the way we did last year. We'll wrap up with the game on J98. Griffin Weinberg, you'll have it. The crosstown rivalry, Valley Catholic and St. Genevieve. There's an established big brother in this rivalry with Valley. Yes, it doesn't seem to matter. Both sides every year talk about each other in the preseason. They say, my goal is to beat the other guy, and there's going to be such terrific athletes out there. I would just pose this to you. Zach and Aiden Boyer clearly have taken it to another level. St. Gen is clearly getting bigger and stronger. J-Pope's doing all the things. Is it enough to get over a Valley team that is not only still championship caliber, but also Pope has one of those dudes in Chase Fowler at quarterback that is, you can do everything right, and he can still make a couple throws, and that'll change the game.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible, and going back to the first point that you made, it's a rivalry game. Throw the records out the window, throw everything out the window. The only thing that'll really matter to them, some people may care about the history between the two teams, on both of those sides, but really the only thing is just, we want to beat them. That's what matters in the rivalry game. And St. Genevieve, they're going to be coming into this game with a lot of confidence. I think getting that win in week 1 for Jay Pope, his first time being a head coach, that is such, a relief. It's such a weight off the back of the shoulders, but it's a big confidence boost. You know that you can go in, you get a close win against a team like Festus, and now he's going up against a guy that he's known for a very, very long time in Judd Nagger over at Valley. So it is going to be, I think, a very good game. I can't wait for it. It's going to be exciting. The crowd's going to be huge. It's St. Genevieve and Valley.
Chase Fowler's coming out party really was this game a year ago. He torched St. Gen, and the Dragons are going to be looking for revenge on their home field. These two are district mates this year. They're both in the same district come postseason time, Class 3 District 2, I believe.
Yes.
So this game is going to matter in that regard. At the end of the year, seeding could be determined by what happens in this one. You really cannot ask for much more than this in a Week 2 game.
No, and it's really easy, just to say, hey, it's Valley, regular season, give them the win. It's very easy to say that kind of thing, but it's going to be different this Friday, especially with the game being in St. Genevieve at their home field on brand-new turf. This is going to be the first time playing on some brand-new turf that they just put in as well. The atmosphere, it's going to be, could be leaning a little green. I don't know. We'll have to see.
That facility, I'm so glad to see that it's getting an upgrade because it's really a great place for football, especially now that they've got a new turf in. And I'll throw this final factoid in there. The last time the Valley Catholic played a game on that field, on that turf, was not the rivalry game. It was their state semifinal victory that got them on their way to their last state title in 2019. They played their state semifinal game over at St. Gen so they could accommodate more fans. And suffice to say, they enjoyed it to the tune of a 20-plus point victory. So we will see what they do in their most recent visit to St. Gen across town to take on their rivals in the Dragons. Man, that is going to be just a whale of a ball game, it looks like, on J98. Farmington at Potosi on AM 800 KREI. Windsor at Perryville on AM 1400 KJF. I think that pretty much puts a bow on it. We appreciate all of you who tune in. Thanks again so much to Amy Cousins and the crew here at Applebee's in Farmington for hosting us. We'll be back right here in this same spot at 6 o'clock next Tuesday night to discuss what happened in Week 2 and look ahead to Week 3. The Farmington Knights will be our special guest then. Until then, that is going to do it for Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg, Chad Speaker, the rest of the regional radio team. Hunter Grebe, our producer and engineer who made the real magic happen this evening back in the studios. I'm Nathan Gertz. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Summer is heating up, and so are incentives on all